Okay, we're good.
'Cause it's your heart, it's alive, it's pumping blood.
Hey, what's up? I'm back with another video. I forgot to put away my craft dinner pot. Please hold. Ah! Okay, I'm back. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about something that is not necessarily related to my CF, but it is related to my chronic illness as a whole. I'm sure, as you can tell by the title, it's about my chronic pain condition. So let me explain. I have this weird condition where whenever my body feels like it, all of my muscles, joints just gets super inflamed, really painful. It's a really good time. And it kind of happens whenever it wants, so that's great. Let me explain to you how all of this happened. When I was 12, I was sitting in my grade 7, so Sec 1 English class, and I remember that morning specifically. I woke up and I was like, my wrist is really bothering me, but you know, it's fine, I'll just put a brace on it and I'll be chillin'. The reason this wasn't a huge concern to me at first was because like a week prior to that, I had just gotten my cast off of my wrist. I had a fracture in my hand, so that's fun. And then basically, I sat in that class for a little while, and as I was sitting there, the pain was kind of getting worse, and it was a pain that I had never really felt before. I'm super accident prone. I get hurt all the time, especially when I was like 12, but this particular pain was not a pain that I had felt before. It felt like, not being dramatic at all, it felt as if like my muscles were being like ripped off of my bone. Like it was a lot to handle. And the only thing I could really do was like put pressure on my wrist, but it was to a point where I was like leaning over my desk like this. So my English teacher looks over and she's teaching and she's like, and she just kind of kept looking back at me. And then at one point she kind of just went, Ashley, do you need to go to the office? And me being this like tiny little nugget, like sitting in my seat, like not wanting to draw any attention to myself, was just kind of like, no, we're fine, I'm okay, don't even worry about it. And she kind of just like went, okay, that wasn't a question, that was like a demand, like go to the office. So I was like, okay. Luckily my aunt works at my school, so I got to sit in her office. We ended up taking off the brace, and when I took off the brace, this is what I saw. Except it was like, I'm gonna say twice as big. I was like, what is this? So we called my mom. My mom took me to the hospital, and I was basically there for a few hours, and I was sent home with Advil. Of course, the Advil didn't do much. Probably a week later, I was at school, and out of absolutely nowhere, that same feeling that I had in my hand or my wrist was suddenly like all over my entire body without warning, and it was terrifying. Like scale of 1 to 10, it was like a 10, an 11 maybe. I was like, what is happening? Went back to the ER. I was put in a wheelchair at that point just to kind of like wheel me in because I couldn't even walk. Like I was literally like it was a mess. This is terrible. Like I can laugh at it now, but like not fun. They sent me home with Advil again, and this kind of thing was happening, I'm gonna say, at least 3 times a month at this point, and it went on for months until one day I went and I was really frustrated, and I think it was my mom who said something, and she said, you know, this isn't normal, you can't just keep giving her Advil and sending her home. And so they ended up calling in a rheumatologist, and a rheumatologist, for those who don't know, is like an arthritis kind of doctor. He or she deals with pain, inflammation, joints, that kind of deal. So she comes in to see me, and I'm sitting there in my wheelchair, hanging out, and she starts, you know, like feeling like my different joints and stuff. And at this point it was really bad this one time in my hips, and I remember her touching my hips and just kind of going, there's a lot of fluid in there, we may have to drain that like tonight. And I was like, what? I have the biggest fear of needles, like to this day. Like, ugh, I hate it. And I've gotten so many needles. I can probably list, I can't even list. I can't even, like, I get needles all the time. I hate them. Like, Oh, so the thought of like needing to get my hip like drained. I don't know what this is. Was terrifying. I was like, no. So she was like, let me go speak to someone and I'll come back. So she went to go talk to someone, and then she came back and she was like, we don't need to do the draining tonight. We're chilling, but I'm gonna give you these meds. So she ended up giving me medication that was stronger than Advil. And so I took that and I was taking that for a little bit, and you know what, it was working. You know, it was, the pain flare-ups were on and off, but they were less frequent, and when I took this medication, it would kind of make them go away. This was the case for a few years, and when I was still at the Children's Hospital, we had kind of said that it was CF-related arthritis and fibromyalgia, because it came to a point where it wasn't just my joints, it was my muscles as well, so it couldn't have just been arthritis. So we just said it was related to CF and that it was CF-related arthritis and fibromyalgia. Then I started moving along to the adult hospital, which is where I am now, and you know, things started getting worse, and I'm gonna say they probably started getting worse when I was 16, 17, in a sense that they were happening more frequently, they were more painful, like, I have the hiccups, So it started getting worse when I was around 16, 17, in the sense that they would happen more frequently, they were a lot more painful, and I was starting to get other symptoms, like sometimes I would have a fever, I developed this rash at one point. So once I got to the adult hospital, we started trying different tests, trying to figure out, you know, what it could be, and for the longest time, once I was at the adult hospital, they hadn't seen me in a flare, so they didn't know what it was really, and they kind of just went, oh well, it's arthritic and it's fine, and they were giving me more meds, and you know, as the 6-7 years like passed by up until now, they were just kind of upping my med dose because that's all they really could do. They didn't know what it was. My joints and muscles just get red and they get swollen, and it's so painful, and so many people look at them and they're like, that looks really painful, and I'm like, yeah, it's definitely as painful as it looks. Like, the only way I can really describe the pain full body right now is, imagine if you've ever slammed your finger in a car door. It's like that level of pain over your entire body. I'm talking like every little knuckle, every little part of your finger, like everything in pain. There's nights where I wake up at 3 in the morning, like screaming. It's awful. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I'm not sugarcoating it. It's terrible. It's awful. So after 6 years of trying to figure out what this condition is and why my body does this to me, we finally have a bit of an answer. So a few months back, I took a blood test, and the goal of that was to see if I had any auto-inflammatory diseases. Because at this point, it wasn't CF. I mean, it wasn't CF-related arthritis, it wasn't fibromyalgia. They had ruled out a few other options as well, and we found out today that one of my genes is defective. So just like cystic fibrosis is a defective gene, I have a defective gene in terms of inflammation. And how my doctor explained it to me is, everybody has these little like inflammation fighters in their bodies, and so they're there to stop inflammation from happening throughout the body. Basically, my inflammation fighters, if you will, are like cut in half. So I don't have as many that are gonna go and stop the inflammation. So it's not like I have a disease where my body overproduces unnecessary inflammation, but my body can't stop inflammation, basically. So that's where we found out today, which it could have been a lot worse, you know? So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it being, you know, a genetic disorder that is able to be treated. I would rather that than it be something a lot worse. And I'm not really sure where this condition is going to take me in the future, but right now, at least we have a grounding point, and we have a few medication options, and we have a few treatment plans in order. And so basically, what people don't understand about this disorder is that I could be completely fine one day, you know, walking around, dancing, having a good time, and then 10 minutes later I'm bedridden and I can't move. And that's extremely frustrating and that's extremely debilitating. And the amount of times I have heard people be like, oh, well, you were fine like 5 minutes ago, like why aren't you fine now? And you don't know what to say because you just stand there and you're like, I don't know why I'm not okay. I don't know why my body does this to me, but it's just as frustrating for me as it is for you. So that's it for today's video. And to all those out there who are suffering with chronic pain conditions that no one understands and everyone is like getting mad at you for canceling plans or don't believe that your condition is valid, you are valid, you are loved, you are worth it. And you know what? If you need to take a day and sit in a bath, or you need to take a day and sit out from going out with your friends, there's no shame in that, sister. I try to be motivational sometimes. It doesn't work very well. So like I said, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed just the same, and I will hope to be posting more soon. Thank you!